So in this video we are going to be looking at the 2009 A4 and the question is on your screen right now. Okay, so right off the bat you can tell that all of the integers will be in S because 0 is in S, and then 0 plus 1 and 0 minus 1 will be in S, then 1 plus 1 and minus 1 will also be in S, and so on. You can cover all the integers. So all the integers are in S, and then if n is an integer, so n is an element of Z, then 1 over n minus 1 is also in S, and then you can also plug in this into this formula. So you can say 1 over n minus 1 times 1 over n minus 1 minus 1 is also in S. But then you realize that this, and then you can add any integer to it. So let's say some k. This is also in S for all integers k. So you might think that okay, we can add plus k over here and minus 1 plus k over here as well. But then you will plug in this again into this formula, and obviously you can tell that it's going to get really complicated. So this is not the way to go. However, you may realize that there is something about primes over here, because if you notice, when we multiply two rational numbers like that, their numerators and denominators will get multiplied, of course. So the numerators and denominators are integers, meaning that you are multiplying two integers, meaning that you are very unlikely to get a prime. Obviously you can get a prime by multiplying two integers, but it's very unlikely. Only in certain cases you will get a prime. So maybe S isn't equal to the set of all rational numbers, and there is some restriction about whether we can get primes in the numerator or denominator. Now before we move on, notice that we can make a slight change to the question, which is replacing this minus sign by a plus sign and replacing the 1 by a minus 1, and the question doesn't change. I'll leave the justification of that for you, and why this change is useful we'll see later. So now what we'll do is we'll define a certain congruency relation on the elements of S. So if you have two elements of S, A and B, then A is congruent to B if A minus B is an integer. Now we'll define generations of elements of S as follows. So generation 1, G1, is defined as X is in G1 if and only if X is congruent to 0. And generation N plus 1 is defined in terms of generation N as X is in generation N plus 1 if and only if X is congruent to, I'll move in the next line, 1 over y plus 1, where y is in generation N. So this is the definition of generations, and this way we can define infinitely many generations, and obviously you can tell that each of these generations is going to be a subset of S, and we can also tell that each and every element of S is going to be in at least one generation. It can be in two generations also. I'm not going to go into that. I think it can't be that some element of S is in two generations, but I haven't proven it. So for now we'll just say that it is in at least one generation of one of these generations. And now you may think that why are we doing this generation classification? It's coming completely out of the blue. Well, the intuition behind it is that it's very easy to talk about what happens when we add or subtract 1 to a rational number, but it's much harder to talk about what happens if we do this weird reciprocation thing. So if you just add or subtract 1, we can easily talk about that, but doing this reciprocation thing messes things up. So we want to separate the elements which are formed by doing this reciprocation thing, and we want to further separate the elements which are made by doing this reciprocation thing over and over again. So that's the purpose of defining these generations. Now here is how the classification into generations is going to come in handy. Let's say we have some rational number Pn over Qn which is in Gn, and we have Pn plus 1 over qn plus 1, which is in gn plus 1, and pn plus 1 over qn plus 1 is formed by 1 over pn over qn times pn over qn plus 1. And one thing I forgot to mention is that over here, when we represent the rational number as in the form integer over integer, I mean to say that the integer in the numerator can be positive or negative, and the integer in the denominator can only be positive. So if this entire rational number is negative, then we can be certain that the numerator must be negative, the denominator can't be negative. So that's just a convention, and of course they are both co-prime, so they can never share a factor other than 1. So now that we have this relation, we can simplify it to say that pn plus 1 over qn plus 1 is qn square over pn times pn plus qn. Now remember the thing which I said about prime numbers. Firstly, any element of gn plus 1 must have a denominator of this form. The denominator can't be of any other form, because when we have an element of gn plus 1, it's either of this form or it's this plus an integer, and adding an integer to this rational number will not change its denominator. And secondly, the numerator and denominator are co-prime. So that means that if we want to have a prime number in the denominator, then pn times pn plus qn must be a prime number. So it can also be the negative of a prime number. So that means we get two cases. The first case is that pn is equal to plus minus 1 and qn plus pn is equal to plus minus prime. So I'm just going to write prime to denote a prime number. And secondly, we have the case where pn plus qn is equal to plus minus 1 and pn is equal to a plus minus prime. Now what we'll do to simplify our job is to just drop this plus minus and say that the negative of a prime is also to be considered as a prime. So minus 2, minus 3, minus 5 and so on are also primes for now. So under that definition, we can say that qn is prime minus plus 1, and here we have qn is equal to plus minus 1 minus prime, so that's minus plus of prime minus 1. So if we use this fact, then we have that pn plus 1 over qn plus 1 is equal to, in the first case we have prime plus or minus plus 1, whatever, squared all over pn, so plus minus 1 times qn plus pn, so that's prime. So we can drop this and just say plus minus, and in the other case we have this being qn, so it becomes prime minus 1 squared all over pn plus qn is plus minus 1 and pn is prime, so again prime, and this is congruent to plus minus 1 over prime, and this is congruent to again plus minus 1 over prime, because when you expand the square you get two terms which are some multiple of this prime, so they get cancelled, and of course their difference will be an integer with this term. So what we get is that pn plus 1 over qn plus 1 can only be congruent to plus minus 1 over prime if the denominator is prime at all. So what we have shown is that any number in the n plus 1th generation can only be of the form this plus an integer. So plus minus 1 over prime plus an integer. This is the only form any element of gn plus 1 can take. So if we have some numbers like 2 over 5 or 3 over 7, then these can never be part of S because they are not in the first generation, and we have shown that they can't be in any of the other generations either. And that concludes the proof for why S can't be equal to the set of all rational numbers. And if you have been following my Instagram page, then you may have seen this question posted on my page before this video was uploaded. So if you're not following me over there, you're missing out on stuff, because I not only post stuff in advance on my page, I also post some other stuff which never makes it into my videos. For example, I post some self-made questions. I recently posted a 250 subscriber special question which was actually posted on my page long before, and I posted the solution only recently. And I also post some other Putnam problems which never make it to my videos. So if you're only watching my videos and not following me over there, you're missing out on stuff. So that's it for today, and thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.